Everyone carries a story the world cannot see, a quiet ache beneath the smile, a shadow behind the strength. Emotional wounds don't bleed, but they break something deep within. They shape how we love, how we trust, and how we see ourselves. And though time may move forward, pain has a way of staying behind, waiting for acknowledgement, not avoidance. Healing doesn't happen by forgetting. It begins the moment you decide to stop running. There comes a point when pretending to be fine no longer works, when the mask of composure begins to crack and the pain you've buried for years demands to be felt. It could be the heartbreak that shattered your sense of safety, the betrayal that made you question your worth, or the childhood neglect that taught you to stay small to survive. Whatever form it takes, emotional pain leaves an invisible imprint, a wound that time alone cannot heal. We often try to numb it, through busyness, achievements, or distractions. We tell ourselves we've moved on, yet a word, a smell, or a memory can still reopen what was never truly closed. The truth is, healing is not linear. It's not about forgetting what happened, but about reclaiming the parts of you that were lost in the process. It's about understanding your pain instead of fearing it, because what you understand, you can transform. Emotional healing begins with courage, the courage to face the truth of what hurt you, and the tenderness to face it without judgment. You begin to see that pain is not your enemy, but your teacher, one that invites you to rise higher in awareness, compassion, and strength. Every tear you've shed, every sleepless night, and every moment of self-doubt holds a sacred message, that your heart is still alive and capable of love. Healing from emotional wounds is not about returning to who you were before. It's about becoming someone wiser, softer, and infinitely stronger because of what you've survived. When you begin to embrace your pain as a path, it transforms from a burden into a bridge that reconnects you with your authenticity, your peace, and your power. This journey is not for the faint-hearted, but if you are willing to walk through the fire of truth, what awaits on the other side is freedom, the kind that no one can give or take away, the freedom of being whole again. Chapter 1. The Hidden Scars We Carry. Some of the deepest wounds are the ones no one can see. They don't show up as bruises or broken bones, but as anxiety that never quiets, trust that never fully returns, and a heart that flinches at the thought of being hurt again. These are the hidden scars we carry, the emotional imprints left by moments that changed how we see the world and ourselves. We learn early on how to hide our pain. Society rewards strength, not vulnerability. So we smile through heartbreak, bury our fears under productivity, and pretend that silence equals healing. But every unspoken word, every swallowed emotion, settles in the body like sediment, shaping how we move, speak, and love. Over time, the unhealed wound becomes a lens through which we see everything. You start to expect disappointment, to anticipate rejection, to fear love, not because life is cruel, but because pain became your point of reference. The hidden scar whispers lies, that you're not enough, that you're too broken to be loved, that what happened was your fault. And even though you may not consciously believe these things, your actions start to reflect them. You choose people who mirror your wounds. You settle for less, because your self-worth still bears the imprint of old pain. Healing begins the moment you recognize that what you call personality may, in fact, be protection, a set of emotional habits built to survive a moment that has long passed. But here's the truth. No scar defines you. It may remind you of where you've been, but it doesn't dictate where you're going. The hidden scars we carry are not symbols of weakness. They are proof that we endured what could have broken us. They show that even when your world fell apart, something in you refused to give up. That something, the quiet, unwavering force within, is your soul's resilience. To heal, you must first see what you've been unwilling to look at. Sit with the discomfort, not as punishment, but as reconnection, When you trace your scars with compassion instead of shame, they begin to soften. You realize that your pain was not meant to define you. It was meant to awaken you. The hidden scars you carry are not your story's end. They are the beginning of your return to wholeness. Chapter 2. Understanding Emotional Pain. Emotional pain is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is evidence that you have felt deeply, that you have loved, trusted, and lost. It is the echo of human experience reverberating through your soul. But for most of us, pain feels like an enemy. We run from it, suppress it, distract ourselves with anything that keeps us from feeling it fully. Yet what we resist only buries itself deeper, waiting patiently to be seen. To truly heal, we must first understand what emotional pain really is. Pain is the body and soul's language of truth. It is not a punishment, but a message, a signal that something within you is out of alignment with your highest self. When you feel betrayed, abandoned, or unseen, it's not just the event that hurts, it's the belief born from it, the belief that you are unworthy, unloved, or not enough. These beliefs create emotional imprints that linger long after the original wound has faded. Pain, then, becomes not just about what happened, but about what you came to believe because of it. Understanding emotional pain means learning to look beneath the story and into the meaning. For instance, the heartbreak that left you shattered may not just be about lost love. It may be pointing to an old wound of rejection from childhood. The anger that flares when someone ignores you may not be about the present moment. It might be an echo of years spent feeling invisible. Pain repeats itself until its message is heard. It is life's way of saying, "Look deeper. Something within you is asking to be healed." Instead of numbing or avoiding it, approach your pain with curiosity. Ask it, "What are you trying to show me? What truth have I been unwilling to face?" When you listen without judgment, pain transforms into understanding. You begin to see that it is not your enemy, it is your greatest teacher. Every emotion carries wisdom, and behind every wound lies an invitation to grow beyond what once hurt you. Understanding emotional pain means realizing that it does not define your worth. It refines your awareness. It is the process through which strength is born, empathy is awakened, and authenticity is reclaimed. When you stop fighting your pain and start listening to it, something miraculous happens. The energy that once kept you trapped begins to release, and what remains is peace, the kind that comes from finally making peace with yourself. Chapter 3. The Power of Acknowledgement. Healing begins the moment you stop pretending that you're okay. The moment you allow yourself to say, "Yes, that hurt me. Yes, I'm still grieving. Yes, I'm still angry, still afraid, still trying to understand." That moment, raw, honest, and unfiltered, is where the light enters. Acknowledgement is not weakness. It is the purest form of strength. Because what you refuse to face, you can never free. We've been taught to minimize our emotions, to say, "It's fine," even when our hearts are bleeding. Society glorifies composure and calls vulnerability weakness, so we learn to bury pain under smiles, to distract ourselves with productivity, or to numb our feelings with temporary escapes. But denial doesn't dissolve pain, it only buries it alive. And buried emotions don't disappear. They resurface as anxiety, anger, emotional numbness, or unexplained sadness. The truth you avoid becomes the prison you live in. Acknowledgement is the act of bringing light to what has been hidden. When you name your pain, you disarm it. When you say, "This happened to me," you take back your power from silence. It doesn't mean you're clinging to victimhood. It means you're reclaiming authorship. Because every unacknowledged wound continues to write the story of your life without your permission. Acknowledging your pain is you standing at the crossroads saying, "This is part of my story, but it no longer defines who I am." There is immense power in saying the truth out loud, even if only to yourself. Sit with your emotions as you would with a friend. Let the tears come without shame. Let the anger speak without judgment. In acknowledgement, emotion completes its cycle. It moves, releases, transforms. The energy that was once trapped becomes available for healing. What once felt unbearable begins to soften in the light of awareness. Acknowledgement is love in action. Love for the parts of you that were silenced, abandoned, or ignored. When you honor your pain instead of hiding from it, you tell your inner self, "You are safe with me now." That safety, that acceptance, is the beginning of freedom. You no longer need to fight your emotions because you understand they were never your enemies. They were simply waiting for your permission to be seen, and once they are seen, they can finally let go. Chapter 4. Releasing the Past Without Losing Its Lessons. At some point, healing requires release, the sacred act of letting go of what once defined you, what once hurt you, and what no longer serves who you're becoming. But letting go does not mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending the past never happened or erasing the memories that shaped you. True release means loosening your emotional grip on the story so that it no longer controls your identity. It's about carrying the wisdom, not the weight. Many people fear that if they let go of their pain, they'll lose the meaning it brought, as if their suffering is the only proof of what they endured. But pain's purpose is not to be your permanent companion. It's to awaken your awareness. Once the lesson is understood, the wound no longer needs to keep bleeding. The mind clings to the past because it seeks safety and familiarity, even when that familiarity hurts. But your soul knows. Healing begins the moment you trust that peace is safer than pain. Releasing the past is not a single act. It's a daily choice. Every time you replay an old memory, you choose either to relive it or to release it. The difference lies in your perspective. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" begin to ask, "What did this experience teach me?" This simple shift transforms pain into power. Suddenly, the betrayal becomes a lesson in boundaries, the heartbreak becomes a lesson in self-worth, the loss becomes a lesson in love's impermanence and depth. One of the most powerful forms of release is forgiveness, not as approval of what was done, but as liberation from the emotional chain that binds you to it. Forgiveness says, "I choose peace over resentment. I choose freedom over bitterness." It's not about them, it's about you. You cannot walk into your future holding on to the weight of what hurt you. Eventually, you must put it down, not because you've forgotten, but because you finally understand. To release the past without losing its lessons is to step into life with open hands, carrying wisdom, compassion, and strength instead of wounds. It's realizing that every experience, no matter how painful, was a teacher guiding you home to yourself. When you release with gratitude, the past transforms from something that happened to you into something that happened for you, and from that space of freedom, the future no longer feels uncertain, it feels sacred. Chapter 5. The Role of Forgiveness in Healing. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood aspects of healing. We often think it means excusing what was done, erasing accountability, or reconciling with those who caused us pain. But true forgiveness is not about them, it is about you. It is the quiet decision to stop allowing yesterday's wounds to poison today's peace. Forgiveness is the act of releasing yourself from the energetic grip of resentment, the invisible chain that keeps you tied to the very thing you long to be free from. Resentment feels like control. It gives the illusion that by holding on to anger, we maintain power over the person or the event that hurt us. But in reality, resentment keeps you bound to that pain. It reopens the wound each time you remember it. Forgiveness, then, is not weakness. It's emotional strength. It's the courage to say, "You no longer have power over my peace." It's the moment you choose to stop drinking from the cup of bitterness and start nourishing your soul with grace. Forgiveness does not erase what happened. It transforms your relationship with it. It takes you from being a victim of the past to being the author of your own freedom. When you forgive, you're not saying, It didn't matter. You're saying, it mattered deeply, but I choose not to let it define me anymore. That choice, quiet, personal, and profound, is how you take your power back. The past loses its grip the moment you decide to stop living inside its shadow. But forgiveness is a process, not a single moment. Some days it comes easily, like a deep exhale that releases years of pain. Other days, it feels impossible, and that's okay. Healing asks for patience. You can forgive in layers, slowly peeling back the anger, the grief, the confusion, until all that remains is understanding. Sometimes forgiveness means saying goodbye with love. Other times, it means loving yourself enough to walk away for good. Either way, it's a declaration of inner peace. The beauty of forgiveness is that it doesn't just heal relationships. It heals you. It frees your mind from replaying old stories, your body from storing tension, your heart from carrying the weight of unfinished emotions. When you forgive, you make space for new energy, for clarity, joy, and love to flow again. Forgiveness is not forgetting, it is remembering with compassion. And in that remembering, you discover that healing was never about changing the past, it was about freeing your future. Chapter 6. Reconnecting with the Inner Child. Deep within every adult lives a child, the part of you that once laughed without fear, loved without condition, and dreamed without limits. That child still exists, even if buried beneath layers of pain, judgment, and self-protection. Reconnecting with your inner child is not about becoming childish. It's about returning to the essence of who you were before the world taught you to hide. It's about meeting the version of yourself that still carries the wounds, unmet needs, and forgotten joy of your earliest years, and finally giving them what they've always deserved: your love. Many of our emotional struggles stem from the neglected child within us, the one who learned to stay quiet to be accepted, to please others to feel safe, or to toughen up because showing emotion wasn't allowed. That child never truly disappeared. They simply went into hiding. Their pain now echoes through your adult fears: fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. Healing means acknowledging that the person you are today is still carrying the echoes of the child you once were. To reconnect with your inner child, you must first listen. Sit in silence and ask, "What do you need from me?" Sometimes the answer will come as a feeling, a memory, or even tears. It may be the need for safety, affection, or validation, things you might have never received consistently. Your job now is to become the parent your younger self needed. Speak to yourself gently. Offer comfort instead of criticism. When your inner child feels safe again, you'll notice your anxiety softening, your creativity awakening, and your joy returning naturally. One powerful way to heal this bond is through self-compassion. Every time you catch yourself being harsh or judgmental, pause and ask, "Would I speak this way to a hurting child?" The moment you choose tenderness over punishment, something shifts inside you. That inner child begins to trust again. They begin to believe that they are no longer alone, no longer ignored, no longer unloved. You become the safe place they never had. And through that, you begin to feel whole. Reconnecting with your inner child is not about rewriting the past. It's about rewriting the relationship you have with it. It's about letting love reach places that pain once ruled. When you hold your inner child with compassion, forgiveness, and patience, you restore a sacred connection, the bridge between your innocence and your wisdom, your vulnerability and your strength. And as that bond deepens, life begins to feel lighter, freer, and more authentic, because healing the child within is how the adult learns to truly live. Chapter 7. Transforming pain into emotional wisdom. Pain, though often seen as a curse, is one of life's greatest teachers. Every wound carries within it a message, a truth about who you are, what you need, and what you're meant to release. When we resist pain, we remain trapped in its shadow, repeating patterns and attracting the same lessons in different forms. But when we lean into it with awareness, pain becomes alchemy, transforming suffering into strength, confusion into clarity, and wounds into wisdom. Emotional wisdom is born from reflection, not repression. The moment you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" you shift from being a victim to becoming a conscious creator. You start to see pain not as punishment, but as a divine invitation to grow. Heartbreak teaches you about boundaries and self-worth. Betrayal reveals the importance of discernment and trust in yourself. Loss reminds you of impermanence and the preciousness of every moment you still have. Every emotion holds insight if you're willing to listen. Transforming pain requires presence. You cannot heal what you avoid. When sadness, anger, or grief arise, resist the urge to numb them away. Sit with the feeling and breathe through it. Emotions are energy, and energy only transforms through expression, not suppression. Journaling, creative expression, or mindful conversation can help you give voice to your pain. And once it is expressed, it loses its power to control you. In that space, wisdom naturally emerges. The greatest transformation happens when you stop identifying with your pain and begin observing it. You are not the wound. You are the awareness witnessing it. When you can see pain from this higher perspective, you begin to recognize patterns and lessons. You notice how challenges have refined your empathy, how heartbreak has deepened your compassion, and how failure has sharpened your resilience. The very experiences that once broke you are now shaping you into a wiser, stronger, and more conscious version of yourself. In the end, transforming pain into emotional wisdom is not about erasing the past, but integrating it. It's about allowing every scar to remind you not of what hurt you, but of how deeply you've grown. Pain becomes a bridge, leading you back to authenticity, purpose, and peace. And when you reach that place, you realize something profound. Pain was never your enemy. It was your guide all along, guiding you home to yourself. Chapter 8. Setting Boundaries and Choosing Peace. Healing is not only about forgiving the past, it's about protecting your present. One of the most profound acts of emotional healing is learning to set boundaries. Without them, even the most peaceful soul becomes drained by the demands, projections, and chaos of others. Boundaries are not walls. They are bridges of respect that allow love and energy to flow without depletion. They define where you end and another begins, creating space for peace to thrive. Many people associate boundaries with selfishness or rejection, but in truth, they are sacred acts of self-love. Every time you say no to something that drains you, you are saying yes to your inner peace. Every time you choose to walk away from manipulation, drama, or guilt, you affirm your worthiness to exist in calm. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They're about letting the right people in, those who honor your values, energy, and growth. Setting boundaries begins with clarity. You must first know what peace feels like to recognize what disrupts it. Notice the subtle cues, tension in your body, emotional exhaustion after certain interactions, or that inner whisper that says, "Something doesn't feel right." These sensations are your soul's way of signaling when your limits are being crossed. Trust them. Your intuition is the guardian of your emotional well-being. The courage to set boundaries often comes with discomfort. You may fear disappointing others, being misunderstood, or labeled as difficult. But remember, peace has a price, and that price is honesty. When you express your needs clearly, you teach others how to treat you. Some may resist your growth, especially if they benefited from your lack of boundaries. Yet, the relationships that are truly aligned with your evolution will adapt and deepen through your truth. Ultimately, choosing peace is a daily decision, not a passive state. It's a commitment to walk away from what disturbs your energy and move toward what nourishes your spirit. When you live with strong yet compassionate boundaries, your life begins to flow differently. You no longer chase validation or react to every emotional storm around you. You simply dwell in the stillness of your own being, grounded, centered, and unshakably at peace. Chapter 9. Rebuilding Trust in Life and in Yourself. Trust is the foundation of emotional healing, the invisible bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. When life breaks your heart, it often breaks your trust too. Trust in others, in the world, and most painfully, in yourself. Every betrayal, disappointment, or unexpected loss plants a seed of doubt. Can I ever feel safe again? Healing begins the moment you decide to believe, not that life will always be easy, but that you are strong enough to meet it with openness and grace. Rebuilding trust doesn't mean denying the pain of what happened. It means learning to see beyond it. Life's challenges are not punishments. They are invitations to deepen your relationship with yourself. When you start to look at each setback as a teacher rather than a threat, you begin to realize that trust is not something given to you. It's something you create. Every time you choose to get back up after being broken, every time you open your heart despite fear, you are rebuilding trust in the flow of life. The first step toward trust is self-connection. You cannot trust the world if you do not trust your own inner guidance. Begin by honoring your feelings, listening to your intuition, and acting on your truth, even when it scares you. Each time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you strengthen your inner foundation. Self-trust grows quietly through consistency, through showing up for your healing, keeping your word, and forgiving yourself for being human. As your self-trust grows, so does your trust in life. You start to notice that not everything that falls apart is a loss. Sometimes it's protection. What once felt like rejection begins to reveal itself as redirection. You realize that uncertainty isn't the enemy. It's the space where miracles unfold. The more you release control and flow with what is, the more life begins to meet you halfway. Trusting life doesn't mean ignoring your fears. It means walking with them, knowing you're guided by something greater than the pain. Rebuilding trust is ultimately a return to faith, not blind belief, but the quiet knowing that you are supported even in your darkest moments. It is remembering that life is not against you. It's always communicating with you. When you trust yourself, you begin to live from alignment instead of anxiety. And when you trust life, you discover peace that cannot be shaken by circumstance. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin whispering, "What is this teaching me?" And that shift changes everything. Chapter 10. Living Whole. The Freedom Beyond Wounds. True healing does not mean forgetting the pain or pretending it never happened. It means integrating every fragment of your experience into a deeper sense of wholeness. When you have walked through the fire of emotional wounds and come out the other side, you don't return to who you were before. You become someone wiser, softer, and infinitely stronger. Living whole is not the absence of pain. It's the presence of peace within it. It's when you no longer see yourself as broken, but as a masterpiece still being painted by the divine hand of life. Freedom beyond wounds begins when you stop identifying with your suffering. For so long, pain becomes part of our identity. The one who was betrayed, the one who was abandoned, the one who failed. These labels keep us bound to the past, but you are more than your story. When you shift from seeing yourself as the victim of what happened to the creator of what comes next, you reclaim your power. You realize that the same experiences that once shattered you have sculpted you into someone capable of greater compassion, depth, and strength. Living whole also means embracing both your light and your shadow. Healing doesn't erase your flaws, it teaches you to love them. The parts of you you once rejected become the very places your wisdom resides. Wholeness is not perfection, it's radical acceptance. It's the moment you can look at your reflection, scars, fears, imperfections, and all, and say, "This is me, and I am enough." When you accept yourself completely, You no longer chase external approval. You live from inner alignment and self-respect. The freedom that comes from wholeness is quiet but powerful. You stop seeking validation through control, outcomes, or other people's approval. You begin to live from presence, responding to life rather than reacting to it. You make choices guided by peace instead of fear. You start to see that even when challenges arise, they no longer break you. They shape you into even greater harmony with who you truly are. In this space, life feels lighter, relationships feel deeper, and the world itself feels safer. To live whole is to live free, free from the illusions of separation, unworthiness, and limitation. It's the realization that healing was never about becoming someone new, but remembering who you've always been, love in human form. When you reach this place, your presence becomes healing for others. You don't need to preach, convince, or fix. Your energy alone becomes a reminder that peace is possible. You become living proof that even the deepest wounds can give birth to the most radiant soul. Conclusion. Healing is not a destination. It is a lifelong journey of remembering who you are beneath the pain, the fear, and the stories you've carried. Each emotional wound you've faced was not a punishment, but an invitation, a sacred call to return to yourself. Pain, when met with awareness, becomes the path to awakening. Every tear, every heartbreak, every loss has been quietly shaping your soul into a vessel of compassion, depth, and truth. The process of healing asks for courage, the courage to sit with your own darkness without running from it, to forgive when it feels impossible, to open your heart again after it's been broken. It demands presence, patience, and faith in the invisible process unfolding within you. But when you rise from that inner work, something extraordinary happens. You no longer look at life the same way. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start whispering, "Thank you." Because now you see, nothing was wasted. Every scar has meaning. Every moment was preparing you for the strength you now embody. Healing from emotional wounds is not about erasing your past, but transforming your relationship with it. It's about reclaiming your power, rewriting your story, and learning to live as the healed, whole being you were always meant to be. The person who once felt broken now stands as proof that even the deepest pain can lead to the most profound transformation. So, as you move forward, walk gently with yourself. Let your past be a teacher, not a prison. Speak kindly to your heart. Protect your peace. And remember, you are not defined by what hurt you, but by how beautifully you've learned to rise from it. In the end, true healing is simply this: coming home to yourself. If this message spoke to your soul, it's because something within you is ready to heal, ready to rise. Don't let the journey end here. On Summary Shelf, we dive deep into the wisdom that helps you grow, heal, and evolve into your highest self. So take a moment, subscribe to the channel, like this video if it touched your heart, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that healing is possible. And most importantly, turn on the notification bell, because each new episode is another step toward peace, purpose, and emotional freedom. Remember, your healing is your power. Stay with us, and let's walk this path of transformation together.